Welcome, everybody. Thank you for hopping on. We're going to give it a minute or two. So hang tight with us and we'll get started here. I'm just going to let people who are taking a second to log on to join us. So we'll get started here in a moment. But I do see some very familiar faces on the student list. So thank you all for coming. It's good to see you all. To those of you I just admitted, welcome. We're going to get started here in just a moment. I'm giving everyone a minute to hop on here before we get started. We'll go ahead and get started today, and if people filter in, then great. Welcome everybody to our Career Conversations panel today with a focus on real estate. My name is Megan Stitt. I'm the Assistant Dean for External Relations in the College of Business, and I oversee our Career Development Center. And our Career Development Center helps students plan their careers. So we do everything from career exploration to resume reviews, interview preparation, help connect you to internships and full-time career opportunities. So if you need assistance, please feel free to reach out to us in the Career Development Center. We would love to help you. And today we're bringing you a panel of real estate experts, and we're really excited to share, different avenues, different ways that you can be involved in the real estate industry, and maybe give you a look into some careers that you haven't considered quite yet. So I will be monitoring the chat throughout today's event. So please feel free, if you have questions that you want to ask the panel, drop those in the chat and we'll make sure to get to those. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Ryan Chacon. He is going to moderate our panel today. So Dr. Chacon, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. It's great to be here. So happy to have you all, and very much thank you to our panelists who we're going to learn a lot from today. We've got a great group of real estate professionals, as Megan said, and what's great is they span a wide variety of different areas in real estate. So really the goal today is just to learn about, what different opportunities exist and what those careers look like. As Megan said, my name is Dr. Chacon. I'm a finance professor here at UCCS, and my research emphasis is on the real estate side. Publicly traded real estate companies. Let's start out just by having the panelists introduce themselves and briefly discuss just kind of how you got into real estate. Let's start with Geoff.
Yep. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Geoff Wright. I'm the president of First Bank here in the Colorado Springs market. Just to be clear, I never planned to be involved in any aspect of real estate ever. But in 1992, when I graduated from college with a degree in finance, that was right at the end of the RTC crisis. There weren't a lot of jobs in finance, and I had a lot of student loan debt and nowhere to go live. So I needed a job, and First Bank was one of the offers I had. And so they had an MT program, a management training program I thought was kind of exciting. And I thought, well, I'll give that a whirl and go work there, and then give that 3 or 4 years and go to a corporate finance role, kind of work my way into something like that over time. And here I am 28 years later. I never did do that piece of it. And real estate is pretty much all I've done since then. So just a quick background, I started working in downtown Denver, as I said, in 1992. That was kind of right when baseball came downtown. They started Coors Field, and that was sort of the catalyst to get things going there. And so I did a lot of construction financing for historic loft conversions, and then that kind of transitioned up into the Golden Triangle, and that was just ground up larger construction projects I was involved in. And then I ended up coming down to Colorado Springs to kind of do some of the same stuff. So that's what I've been doing at the bank. Just a quick rundown on First Bank. We're a retail bank, primarily a real estate lender. Obviously, we do a little business lending as well, but we're probably about 60% retail, which is mortgages and home equity loans and things like that. About 40% commercial is kind of what we look like.
All right, thank you, Geoff. I've heard so many times, I never thought I'd get into real estate, but I've been here and I'm never leaving. So that's certainly kind of how it goes. How about Cathi?
Well, I think that's the theme of the day. My name's Cathi Sullivan. I'm the broker owner of ERA Shields Real Estate. I graduated with a degree in accounting and a degree in finance. I worked in the .com industry during the early 2000s, so I got to ride that wave. And at the crash of that, I decided to go into something extremely different. And I came into real estate actually as an accountant for ERA Shields Real Estate. And the gentleman at the time who owned it was looking for an exit strategy. And so him and I put together a plan, and I was able to purchase the company about 5 years ago and have been running it for about 5 years. We have 100 agents. We mainly specialize in residential real estate sales. And then we also have a residential property management group under us that we run. So it's exciting. And like Geoff, I never planned to be in real estate, but I don't plan to ever leave now that I'm here.
Thank you, Cathi. It's a great time to be in residential sales in Colorado Springs. That's
Yes.
for sure.
Yes.
All right. How about Brian?
Colorado Springs. Graduated with a degree in accounting, like Cathi, and went into public accounting, CPA, for a number of years. Didn't ever really intend, as other folks have mentioned, to get into the real estate business. And left public accounting and went to work as a controller / CFO role for a couple of companies. One of them was a startup. That startup never quite started. Around that time, my wife and I had a first child, and it made a lot of sense with her staying home for me to get into a business that was 100% commission. So I made the decision to get into real estate. So I am a commercial real estate broker. So I work with a company in Newmark. We're an international firm. We have offices all over the world, one in Colorado Springs, around 1,200 brokers, publicly traded company. And I am an office broker. What that means is I do office sales and leasing, primarily representing owners of real estate and occupiers as well, whether they're tenants or owners. And I would tack on that once you get in the business, maybe you never want to get out, and maybe you're no longer qualified to do it.
Thank you, Brian. Gina.
Good afternoon. Gina Kochitska. I am an attorney, have been an attorney in the state of Colorado for about 16 years now. And I started my real estate career as an attorney and an intern for one of the oldest law firms here in Colorado Springs. That was during second year of law school. Graduated from law school and had the wonderful opportunity to have one of the elder partners of the firm decide that I had some potential to be mentored. And because of that mentorship, within a couple of years of practicing as a licensed attorney, I became a partner in that law firm, primarily focusing on real estate. Of course, among other areas, real estate goes well with the business law. Often it turns into clients who you have developed a good relationship and trust, and they want you to do some estate planning, but primarily going back to real estate, transactional and litigation work both. At least for me, as a starting young or younger attorney in the career, gave me an opportunity to focus on both the transactional and litigation practice of the law. What that truly allowed for is a better understanding of where one and or the other potentially made errors to hopefully improve that practice and avoid some of those errors. As a transactional lawyer, you don't always get to litigate cases, so you don't always get to see some of the claims that are being raised and being litigated as a result of what may have transpired on the transactional part of it. But when you have the opportunity to dive into litigation as well, you get a much better understanding of both worlds. And in my opinion, you're a much better attorney as well. So law degree definitely got me into real estate. Had I known that's where I'm going to focus, maybe, maybe not. I can tell you, I always knew I wanted to be an attorney. I knew I was going to be an attorney. Real estate was maybe a weakness growing up, and made that decision to focus on real estate law primarily very easy. I graduated undergrad with political science degree. Not much you can do necessarily with a political science degree, even though you have options. But I will tell you, as a practicing lawyer now for 16 years, there is a lot that you can do with an attorney degree in many, many different areas in the employment industry, not just as a lawyer, as a lobbyist, as a politician, et cetera. There are endless options. Currently, after about 14 years of private practice, I decided to transition to government work. So I am in-house counsel currently for a local government agency, Pikes Peak Regional Building Department. It is, as I said, a locally focused agency that regulates the construction industry in about 8 jurisdictions. So we oversee residential and commercial construction activities, and we enforce adopted codes. To a degree, we work with homeowners, we work with licensed contractors. On occasion, we have to pursue non-licensed contractors for doing work in our jurisdiction without required licenses or registrations. So even though in my current position as in-house counsel, I still have the opportunity to litigate and go to court and chase those non-licensed contractors, which to a degree puts some excitement in at least my world. With that, I'll turn it back over to Ryan.
Thank you, Gina. Wonderful. Perry.
So good afternoon to all. So I got started in the business like with never an imagination of it. When I was the age of a lot of you students who are watching this. So I went to Arizona State, graduated finance and securities, Dean's List, et cetera. I thought life was great because semester break in my senior year, had some interviews, and I did get a job with an investment banking company in Denver. And that's what brought me from ASU up to Denver. So here I was, just turned 22, week out of school, and I was lucky. I passed the securities exam first time around, 1 week out of school. So, but did I know the real world? No, I knew everything to do with securities, finance, capital, everything to do with raising money. So the firm that I was with, I went out with a lot of the partners, knocking on corporate doors. It was easy. I could communicate with them, and everything to do with public, private, capital, et cetera. Well, the rest of the story means about a year later, they said, Harry, now you're going to be on your own. You've got all the training and you know what you're doing. The bottom line was I was too young. How many companies to this day would think that some young student grad, 23, 24 years old, might take care of us? Didn't happen. 3 years later, I flunked out. So what am I going to do with myself? Well, I heard about Colorado Springs. I said, I'll take a ride down, looked it over. Wow, what a place. It had a population of 110,000 people. Well, gee whiz, you know I'll get a job here. This will be my new home. So I'm going to buy a house. So looked around at some first-time builders at the time. Yes, went under contract. And I said, oh, I'll commute every day between here and up Denver. I'll come down, knock on doors, I'll get a job so I can qualify for the mortgage. 6 weeks later, didn't happen. I knocked on all the doors with somebody my age, knowledge of finance. I tell the home builder, gee, I'm sorry I can't buy the house because I can't get a job to qualify for the mortgage. Minor detail. He said, let's talk. He says, you know, we chatted and you're so smart in finance. Don't you think you could figure out how to sell houses? I said, I don't know a thing about real estate. I never had a course. I know absolutely nothing. He says, let me tell you something. You know, finance, we'll tell you, we'll train you our product. And why don't you give us a try? Will you try us for a month? We think you can sell houses. Well, I said, okay, what do I have to lose? So sat on the model, and you bet, that all worked out. I couldn't believe it. It was easy because I sold houses from the model and finance. Anyway, I did that for a couple years, and then decided to go to a brokerage company. I did that, and what took place, I got involved with the Chamber of Commerce then because I wanted to meet decision-making people, and that would have been in the about 75, 76. So I got involved with the Chamber, got appointed at the time EDC got created. Why? Because I knew finance, I could help when we went out and knocked on corporate doors to relocate companies to Colorado Springs. Fast forward, I knocked on a door with the Chamber called Lytton in Chicago headquarters. 2 weeks later, I get a call from the CEO. He says, hey, we want to come to Colorado Springs. Would you tell us about the city? I said, you bet. What do you want to know? And I'll take care of you. The time then went to the director of the Chamber, went to the mayor. Hey, we've got a live one here called Lit. What do you want me to represent? Never forget. Bob Isaac was the mayor. Says, Harry, you understand finance. We'll protect you. We'll cut the deal. You do what you got to represent to bring that company coming to town. Did it. Fast forward from there, a bank that I used at the time said, you know, you need to open your own company because you're smart in finance and you know real estate. That took place. So I started my brokerage company, 78, owned it 39 years. I was on Guard of the Gods Road. Today where Raising Cane's is. The bank gave me 100% in that time. Buy the land, build a building. I ended up having my own relocation company. I had my own mortgage company. I created my own real estate investment trust. Everything to do in the residential real estate business. 5 years ago, my doors knocked on. Predecessor, that's where Raising Cane is. That's where my building was. Here's an offer you can't refuse. I sold an office building at the highest price of anything of the year. What am I going to do with myself? Anyway, I ended up doing a merger with ERA Shields 5 years ago. The rest is history. It's all every sector of the residential industry.
Thank you, Harry. Really appreciate that. Keep in mind, you can ask questions on the chat. I'm going to go ahead and move to the next question. And we do have a little bit of limited time, so I'm trying to trim this question down, keep it a little bit brief. You know, are those of us that are watching, you know, are in school, we're looking for, you know, what's a career that matches my skill set, my life goals. Maybe I'm more entrepreneurial. Maybe I'm okay with 100% commissions. Maybe I'm more analytical, looking for something more stable. And I know we kind of have a lot of representation on the panel. Maybe you could tell me just a little bit about the specific area that you're in, kind of what you enjoy about the career and what's challenging about the career, and talk a little bit about kind of what the career provides. So, you know, more entrepreneurial for those of us on the sales side, and then maybe more, you get more enjoyment from various different parts of the career. You know, a lot of students, when they think about real estate, they just think of real estate agent, which is a wonderful career, but there's so much that you can do. So let's start with Brian, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about the difference between residential brokerage and commercial brokerage.
I can tell you a little bit about commercial brokerage. So the differences are, I think, on the commercial side of the business, and it doesn't matter what food group you're in, because there are a lot of different products. So I'm an office broker, but I also do some healthcare. There are brokers that specialize in retail and industrial, warehouse distribution, apartments and multifamily, hospitality, so hotels and those kind of things. And within every one of those food groups, you've got brokers, or brokers. But you also have real estate appraisers. You've got financial analysts that work for large real estate investment trusts and institutional finance. There are groups that focus solely on acquisition and disposition of investment properties. So there are opportunities to work on the analyst side, opportunities to what I would to be an asset manager, so to be responsible for a portfolio of product, across a broad geographical area. So there's a lot of different spots in the commercial world where somebody can. I'll pause and let you catch up if you want me to clarify or focus a different way. What I do on a day-to-day basis is I write emails and I make phone calls. The reality is that's 90% of my time. So some of those emails and some of those phone calls are straight cold calling or reaching out to a company that I have absolutely no relationship, trying to develop some business. I probably realistically should do more of that. For me right now, where I am in my career, most of it's relationship management and transaction. So one of the differences I think between residential and commercial is the amount of time it takes to get a deal done. Especially in today's market, and I know Harry and Cathi will touch on it, the residential market is crazy. The commercial market is slower. I work on transactions that can take 6 months, 9 months, and sometimes they're years. So part of the development and building that business is trying to build relationships with the same clients for 10, 20, 30 years. So what I do is really less focused on sales, Brian, and more focused on counseling, on helping people position their properties or their needs the right way to take care of them, whether it's their business or investment, to position it the right way.
Thank you, Brian. Right. So just to kind of piggyback on that, Brian's job is more to present properties for investment purposes, larger institutional investors, bigger money, buying properties and renting it out. Whereas, on the residential side, you're more interested in, you're typically selling to sellers who are, buying their dream home, the countertops and the backsplashes. I currently just went under contract for a home, so I know exactly what it's like. Maybe Cathi, you could tell us what residential sales are like.
Yeah. So residential sales are a little bit different than the timeline for commercials. We tend to have more clients. We go quicker. We have to deal with a lot more emotion. I think in commercial sales, you're dealing with people who are looking at bottom line, strictly dollars. Where's the best place for my business based on rate of return, those kind of things. Where when we're dealing with clients, they're finding their dream home. They may be in there 30 years. And so our relationship time is shorter with them, but I think we deal a lot more with their emotional side versus the analytical side. I'm lucky because I run the company. So we have residential brokers who assist clients in buying and selling. They're very entrepreneurial. It's a great career if you want to take control of your income and what you do. But then we also have the business side because we're a full service brokerage. So I have a marketing department, an IT department, an accounting department, a relocation department. So we have careers for basically anyone in business. And what I think is different, having worked in different fields, if you're an accountant for a real estate company, real estate agents are very people focused. They're very outgoing. They like to talk. A lot of times accountants are very introverts. They sit at their desk. They kind of do their analytical stuff. And it helps you, if you're an accountant, get out and see that interaction and do a lot with agents. So I think if you're looking at a career in real estate, whether you're on the business side or the agent side, I think that interaction with people is huge. Great communication skills, drumming up on some of that. My day is spent, talking to people, listening to problems, helping solve problems, helping manage through contracts. So I get a little bit of legal work in there, nothing like Gina, but a little bit of interpreting our contract that we're allowed to interpret, a little bit of accounting, managing with people's money, and then helping people deal with their day-to-day decisions and guiding them through the process. So it's a very diverse career.
Yeah, the residential salespeople are helping individuals make probably the biggest purchase they make in their lifetime. So Harry,
Yes.
did you have anything you wanted to add on residential sales?
Well, sales, it's you just have to be prepared for every economic cycle. And that's something that students really ought to understand, even as crazy as the market is today, as an example, and what you apparently experienced, the total number of residential homes on the market today in the city is about 280 total. Just about 3 or 4 years ago, we were about 1,800 to 2,000. That's what the market's usually used to. But what's important is to understand the changes of economic cycles and what it does to the housing market. Just to give you some specifics, I even wrote this down. So back in 1973, I never knew anything about politics in the real world. Well, to me, I can say the wrong people got elected. They wanted to stop growth of the city. So what did the city council do? We ran out of gas, and there was no more gas allowed in new construction and housing. And that's totally stopped housing for about a 3 or 4 month period. We experienced that. 1977, interest rates started moving up. We were at about 9% of a 30-year fixed mortgage. 82, under President Reagan, we know interest rates then went up to 18% on the 30-year fixed. We had to experience that. 88, we had the S&L crisis. The reason I'm mentioning this again is every cycle has something to do what students need to know about financing. After that, 04, we had another economic cycle issue. And of course, we know what took place in 09 with all the S&L crisis that created the new Dodd-Frank law. So all that had to do with how we had to modify our knowledge into the ultimate retail customer. With that knowledge, it really helps students to know what the real world is about.
Thank you, Harry. You mentioned interest rates. Let's go over to Geoff. So, when you're working in real estate, it's a highly leveraged business because you have an asset to lend against. So you very infrequently are you buying property without borrowing some money to do so. And Geoff is the guy you go to depending on the type of loan. So Geoff, talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. So it's a little bit of a tough question, right? Simply because every bank's a little different. We all do it a little differently. And what you do day to day at any given bank is different. Also on the credit side of things, keep in mind, you don't have to work at a bank, right? So if you work at a bank, you've got kind of the other stuff that goes with being at the bank. For us, we're kind of generalists. So we do all sorts of different things at the bank in addition to lending. Obviously, that's our primary goal, but we're also on the management side of things. But keep in mind, you can be a loan broker, so you can go work for a company specifically where that's what you're doing, and you kind of eat what you kill. That's a commission-based job versus us where it's a salary job, which is obviously a little different deal. As far as the lending itself goes, we obviously we're in both sides of the world, the residential and commercial, and residential is exciting and really rewarding because you get to help people buy their first home. We're involved in a lot of nonprofits in town, so we help people, LMI folks, kind of get their dream and actually get a home. And that's really rewarding and really exciting. And people really like that. Obviously, it can be emotional as well because it's stressful for people. Buying a house is one of the most stressful things you do. So that's always an interesting side of things. And then you go to the commercial side of the world and it's just a completely different game. A lot more complex. As Brian mentioned, takes a lot longer. There's more that goes into it. As far as just kind of an average day for me or for one of our loan officers. It's a lot of meetings, just as Brian said, he does a lot of emails and phone calls. We do a lot of meetings, phone calls, emails, that sort of thing. We've got to go get business, just like real estate brokers. When I started, those were the good old days. People just come to your office with a big packet and drop it on your desk and ask for $10 million. And that doesn't happen anymore. You got to go find it. So you have to have relationships. You have relationship with various types of brokers, builders, whoever, and those people refer loans to you. And that's a super important part of our business. And so you spend a lot of time dealing with that. At my level, I spend a lot of time kind of on the relationship management side of that, helping make sure that continues and that deal flow continues for us. And that's a really important part of what we do. And it's always hard, like right now for my officers, they're dying because we're working on PPP loans. We're working on record mortgage volume. We've got record commercial loan volume. And on top of all that, we're trying to keep our lobbies open and keep all our employees and customers safe. So they're running every which way. But I know that interest rates are going to change soon. You're already starting to see the long end creep up. You just experienced that. And what that means is the market's going to slow down a little bit, and then they're all going to panic because they don't have enough business. And so right now I got to get them to step on the gas and get more referrals and build that business. So it's a fun business. There's always a lot going on. And, without getting into the minutia of what goes on day to day, it's a big picture. That's kind of what it looks like, but it's exciting, and there's always something going on. You're always solving problems, and it's a good time most of the time.
Great. Thank you, Geoff. And just to piggyback on what Geoff's saying with interest rates. So, when you're a lender, interest rates are low, a lot of people want to borrow. And as interest rates creep up, it becomes more expensive for people to borrow and buy properties. And so you start to see that volume go down. And those mortgage loan officers, I know I'm just buying a house. I'm calling my mortgage loan officer Saturday, Sunday. She's always available. She gets a commission based on that as well, and she does a great job. Someone asked you, Geoff, what sort of nonprofits are you involved in? Can you kind of clarify, like, how does your bank, support nonprofits in the area?
Sure. Yeah, no problem. I'm personally involved. I'm on the board for Diversus Health, which was formerly Aspen Point. I'm on the board for the Rocky Mountain Community Land Trust, which, as it relates to housing, is probably most applicable here. I've been involved with the land trust, I don't know, for 20 years or something. So, and that's, I'm assuming people are familiar with that model, but basically it's just the land trust owns a portion of the property in conjunction with the borrower, and that helps them kind of lever into a house and get a little more home than they would typically be able to afford. So that's a great way for that to work. We have other officers on the board of Grescio Housing and Partners in Housing. So that's sort of the housing continuum here in town, kind of start to finish, taking people off the street, so to speak, and working through the system and getting ultimately to the goal of home ownership. So that's an exciting kind of transition for us to watch people go through that. So we're involved with that as well. Other nonprofits, I'm involved personally with the Independence Center. I'm on the finance committee there, and I'm involved in Rotary. I'm on the ethics committee for USA Bobsled and Skeleton Foundation. I've been on SBA board as president of Colorado Lending Source for a while, which is great. I know the bobsled and skeleton is kind of an odd deal, but anyway, so quite a few different things. And if you looked at our entire officer group in the market, we're on, Red Cross and just across the board, we're involved across town. And so obviously we support those nonprofits and volunteer our time and treasure to help them. So.
Thank you, Geoff. Yeah, sometimes the kind of popular view of bankers is they're just kind of greedy and just want your money. But a lot of programs exist for those with lower income, especially in this housing environment where affordability is becoming a problem, that kind of assists those lower middle income individuals purchase properties, which is great. So going over to Gina, the purchase of a property or any type of real estate transaction is a complex one. There's often a very long document that someone who knows what they're doing is supposed to read. And that's because you're literally legally owning a piece of property potentially forever. on the earth. And so that's kind of a big deal. And you want to make sure that no one comes over and tells you that it's not yours anymore. So can you talk a little bit about, you kind of threw out the phrase transaction a lot. What does a transaction look like? Doesn't need to be residential, whatever that you're involved in. Kind of what are the processes that go with that? Just very briefly.
Or very briefly to answer your question, when we talk about transactions, usually the meaning behind that, especially to get you to a contract, there are two important terms. One is an offer and the other one is consideration. So when a person makes an offer, for instance, to purchase real estate, it is for some type of consideration that the other side is willing or not willing to accept. You end up in some type of negotiations, which is very common in today's real estate market, especially when we're seeing residential transactions with several offers on a day or within a couple of day term. But once consideration is introduced and there is an acceptance, generally you have a contract. So think of it this way: offer, consideration, which means somebody is doing something, somebody's paying money, or some type of an act is taking place, and an acceptance by the other party. So that's what gets you under contract. Once you have an offer, the most important thing is to read the terms of that offer so that you can understand what it is that you're agreeing to, what type of representations are being made, and what are the expectations from both parties going into this transaction. Most often in a residential transaction, you have a seller and a buyer. You will or may have brokers involved, you may have a banker involved, you may have an accountant involved, and at times you may have a lawyer involved. So a transaction may involve several parties depending on your circumstances and how large the transaction may be. But once you're under contract, certain representations and deadlines are triggered, and those are very important to monitor, because sometimes omitting a deadline can cost you either a transaction or it can force you to close on a transaction that otherwise you may have reconsidered or tried to negotiate. In a residential transaction, and some of our broker attendees can specifically speak to that, there are specific time limitations for appraisals, inspections, due diligence documents, insurance requirements, loan deadlines, objections thereto, etc. So it's a long list of questions to be answered and considered and negotiated, but that is generally what you take into account when dealing with a real estate transaction. One matter I will share with you: in real estate transactions, just like very similar in estate planning transactions, which very often have to do with real estate issues, especially if you have a client who is real estate wealthy. Sometimes they may be cash poor, but real estate wealthy. For consideration is that some of your professionals involved as a group are an attorney, an accountant, or your CPA, and you also have involved a financial advisor. If you are considering buying or selling, you may often have a real estate broker or a brokerage firm involved as well. But every time you consider entering into whatever type of transaction, residential or otherwise, make sure you read whatever documents you are considering signing, because in the law, not knowing is not an excuse. And all of our judges, whether it is here in Colorado Springs, El Paso County, et cetera, or anywhere else, will hold you accountable to that. Not knowing is not an excuse in the law.
Thank you, Gina. We certainly learned that in 2008, 2009. We got a question, and it ties into the next question I was going to ask. The question we got was, how do you get into real estate? What can you do in real estate with a degree in marketing? And the question I wanted to ask was, how can our undergraduate students get started kind of in your field? What type of education is best? What does an entry-level position look like? And we don't have a ton of time, so we'll touch on it quickly. But I do want to address the first question, which is, talking about marketing. Let's start with Cathi, because you talked about having a marketing department within your firm. What is marketing in real estate? Certainly it spans more than just residential, but why don't you chime in there, Cathi?
Yeah, so our corporate marketing, he helps handle, he manages all our social media posts, schedules all that, does that. He also looks at sponsorships that we do. We sponsor Air Force football, we sponsor CC hockey. So he prepares the ads for those, does a little bit of advertising. He helps plan events. We have events for clients. So it's you get to use a wide range of your marketing skills. And he also tries to teach some our agents how to use those social media tools and how to use that. And then some of my previous marketing people have actually gone on to become agents. They like the commission-based side better than the salaried side. So they'll move in there and then they use those skills to help clients list their homes and sell those. So we have people with all kinds of degrees. We have accounting, we have finance, we have psychology degrees, marketing, pretty much anything. If you're a people person, we can help you tweak that and fit in real estate.
Right. So anything from marketing the firm as a whole to really marketing yourself as an agent.
Right.
Let's go over to Geoff, because someone asked about mortgage loan officers. So maybe you can talk a little bit about entry levels on the lending side, as well as there's a specific question about the advantages and disadvantages of working for a national company or a more local lender.
Sure. Yeah, happy to answer that. So I guess I can't really give you a lot of insight into a national company. First Bank's privately held, and we're here in Colorado. We have locations in Arizona and California, but we're primarily a Colorado-based bank. So I guess we still qualify as local, even though we're kind of regional at this point. As far as job requirements, every bank's a little different. If you just wanted to be a mortgage loan officer, we don't have that specific job here. We're more generalists, as I mentioned. For us, I would just talk about kind of how it works here. We have a management training program that you would go through if you're going to be on the officer side or the loan production side of the world. And basically the requirements for that is you need a 4-year business degree or an MBA, obviously with accounting and finance, a minimum of a 3.0 GPA. And I am somebody here really quick on the marketing side of things, just to make sure I wasn't lying, but marketing degree qualifies, assuming you have some finance and accounting classes. So you're good. And we do have a marketing department that it's big. So just in case you're wondering about that. But hey, to go on to the management training program itself, it's basically what it sounds like. So you come into that program, it's about 6 months long. And the great thing about us being generalists is you kind of have to learn all aspects of the bank. So we run you through everything. You go to the holding company and you learn what goes on in every department. So you'd work in the accounting department, the investment securities, mortgage lending, loan ops, loan review, audit, the data processing, that whole side of things. Then you come out to the bank and you'd work at a branch, you work on the teller line, you work in the new accounts department, you work with the loan officer, and you get to see what goes on in all of those areas of the bank. And then that's about a 6-month program, assuming all goes well. At the end of that, you get promoted to be an officer, and then you go on to work in whatever area you were trying to, originally applied for. But for us, because we only promote from within, it's really important that everyone understands the entire organization and how things work, because as you move up, obviously your area of responsibility grows. And so if you just know one little sliver of what we do, it's really hard to run a larger operation. So that's how we do it. Everyone does it a little bit differently. Some banks will hire you specifically for just a certain role. You'll train for that and move into that role. And obviously, if you're going to be a loan officer, there's specific training for that you have to go through. But with us, as you move through the system, we have a lot of classes and things you take because we train you as you go, and you move through the system. And kind of the natural progression is you start with more simple credits and simple underwriting, and you kind of work your way up through the system through mortgages and commercial lending over the years as you gain experience. So.
Thanks, Geoff. That sounds great. I always tell my students, if you can, find a job where they're investing in you. They're teaching you, let you go after they've invested all that time and energy in you. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. My thing went out for a second there. Okay, let's move to Harry. You came from kind of all over. If you could be back in college, what would be the degree you picked and kind of the trajectory you would do to get to where you are today?
Okay, I'm sorry, you faded out. Restate that.
I said, if you could go back to college today, wanting to be in the career you're currently in, what degree would you pick, and kind of how would you get started in your area?
Sure. I think, of course, it'd be in college business, but what is most important, no matter what you do, and I'm a total believer, is the art of negotiation. And that's exactly where I'd be. And that negotiation is kind of a marriage of marketing and finance. But to students today, no matter what they might want to do, for profit or nonprofit, they're going to be dealing with, quote, the ultimate customer. And understanding an upper level of negotiation is where I would be.
Great. Thank you, Harry. Brian, what is a kind of entry level look like for you?
Yeah, so quick, is my sound any better? I know that it was a little off before. Okay.
Better now, yeah.
Great. You can really be a commercial real estate broker with any background. My business partner that I've worked with for 15 years is a psychology degree. One of my other associates came from a medical background, specifically cardiothoracic surgery tech. I've got another associate that's got an MBA from Fordham. So you can really get to the business in any way. I think that for students that are considering careers in commercial real estate, Harry mentioned, coming at it from a negotiation perspective, and I think that there's an emotional intelligence part of that you have to build. So it's working on listening skills, working on understanding people's intent on what they're trying to do, and developing your ability to hear a little better, and to repackage maybe what somebody's saying to you and present it back to them to address some of their concerns. Entry level, if you're going to start in the commercial real estate business, your day-to-day for the first couple of years, you're going to spend a lot of time doing uncomfortable things. When I say uncomfortable, a lot of people are not real comfortable cold calling and knocking on doors and trying to uncover opportunities. Hopefully, if you do it right, you're working with a broker who is mentoring you and bringing you along, and introducing you to relationships, and doing it in a way that you know that you've got some income coming in and you're not going to starve. But at the same time, you have to build your own business. And one of the things you have to figure out is how you do it. I'm not an extrovert. I'm an introvert. It's kind of my style. It's who I am. And I had to figure out how to do my job in a way that's comfortable for me and I can be successful in it. There are plenty of folks who love being out there, knocking on doors and talking to everybody they can find. So it's really a matter of finding the right fit for you with a mentor or a senior broker that you're going to work with, and understanding that A plus B doesn't always equal C in the real estate business. It's nonlinear. So the career path, or even transactions, you think you need to do 5 things to get to the finish line, and you do 3 and you get there. Sometimes you have to do 10. So understanding that you can do all the right things and be wrong, and being patient and comfortable with that.
Great. And also, just a comment on the commercial side, you can work more as a financial analyst, where you're basically valuing large commercial properties. That usually takes a lot more effort, a lot more work than maybe valuing on the residential side. But one job that's not represented here today is appraisers, which Brian talked about. And appraisers basically value, it could either be residential where they value a property, or they're on the commercial side where they're valuing those kind of large complex properties, which I think is a lot of fun. Gina, can you tell us just a little bit, if you want to get into real estate law, you know, do you just get a general law degree? Is there kind of specializations that are fruitful on the real estate side?
Currently, law schools do not have specialized law degrees. So when you go to law school, you take something very similar to general education in the law. And then the second and third year, you can take classes to focus in certain areas, whether it is real estate or otherwise. But probably the most important thing for consideration for getting into real estate law, especially if you're a law student, is to secure clerkships or internships or even jobs within law firms who are specializing in those areas, because most of law school is learning the technical book side perspective of what it means to be a lawyer, and some of those basic knowledge and skills that you will need specific to how to research a matter that may come to you that you don't know the answer to. One thing as a lawyer you learn during law school is that you don't always know the answer when you're being asked a question, but you're taught the skills and the abilities, and you're given the tools to always find the correct answer or a reasonably explainable answer. So that is probably the best way to put your foot into real estate as a lawyer is one, go to law school, and to secure as early as possible an internship, clerkship, and or a paid position within a law firm that specializes in that. Very beneficial for general practice is to consider a clerkship with a court, but that will give you more of a different type experience on a litigation side and also research type of projects. But all of those will expose you to some degree to real estate, whether it is litigation or research wise.
Great, thank you. So just a question for the panel. I know a lot of people are attracted to, or they know people who kind of started their own real estate business. You know, they're not agent, they just, or maybe they have their license, but they kind of, their goal is to buy several properties, rent them out, kind of lever that into another property and rent it out, kind of this entrepreneurial idea. Do Harry and Cathi, do you work with these types of individuals, or anybody on the panel? Do you have any thoughts on this career path, the risks and potential rewards?
So we have a lot of our agents who do that. They either build up a portfolio. I know Harry has done it himself a lot. We have agents who built up a portfolio. They do fix and flips. They do their own home rentals. It's a great career move, and it's easy to kind of get into and get started if you can get some cash backing. The risks are when the market turns, if you're in the wrong spot, you might get stuck with loans and stuff that you can't pay. But we have a lot of people who just have portfolios. We have people who don't want to get their real estate license, and so they work with our agents to help guide them for good investments and things like that. So you can either get your own license and kind of do it, or you can have someone on our team help you as well. But we have a lot of people coming up right now that are doing very well doing that, and they're young people with that go get attitude, and they're out there changing things.
Harry, Cathi mentioned you do that, some of that yourself.
Sure, and for particular for the students to understand is that everything to do with real estate is local. So in other words, take a look at our community, and what I do for clients, especially investors, extremely regularly is I'll take a look at local market conditions. It's published monthly by our local MLS. Take a look at what our relative strength of growth, appreciation, etc. And then I do a comparison to Wall Street. What's the appreciation of stocks, be it let's call it from S&P or Dow Jones. What's the comparison of the growth, the rate of return locally in single family residential compared to Wall Street? It's very easy to do that, and that makes a demonstration to the students it's okay to learn more about the Colorado Springs market. You do that, you implement, it's going to put money in your pocket. It's going to make you a more successful person in our industry. Therefore, I know they're in the lobby of College of Business, but encourage the students to read the Wall Street Journal as often as possible. How about that, Ryan?
That sounds good. I do the same. Certainly staying up on news events, and right, you are investing in an asset class, and you got to compare that investment not just to $0, but to some alternative investments. And certainly real estate can be a great investment and a great diversifying investment. Certainly a little bit more work, but I think also maybe a little bit. Oh man, sorry. You kind of get to be involved in your investment rather than just kind of, investing kind of passively. Well, let me ask a question just broadly for the panel. We talked a little about the residential market here. I know a lot of people probably that are listening today are thinking about getting into residential one way or another. Cathi kind of mentioned the downside of maybe the market turning sour. We know we had kind of a big bubble break in 2008. Do you think that's what we're heading towards now? Do you think it's going to be a period of continued expansion? What's kind of, just as we close out here, what's kind of your take on the market in the next, let's say, 1 to 5 years?
I personally feel that the market is going to continue to go up. If you analyze the number, the reason we're going up currently is really the increase in demand, not necessarily the decrease in supply. And there's no factors that look like our local economy is going to change as far as demand goes. We have a lot of companies coming in. We have a lot of people that are now able to work remotely that would love to be in Colorado Springs. It's a great place. We just brought Southwest Airlines in, so it's going to increase our airline traffic. We have In-N-Out Burger coming, all those things that are here, and it's not going to decrease the demand. And actually, we saw that COVID actually increased demand in Colorado Springs because people were leaving the densely populated, apartments on top of each other, and they're coming and they're looking for single family homes, and we have that. And a lot of people who were stuck in their home for a long time are deciding they need a different home. And so they're moving. So I personally don't feel, even with the increase in interest rates, which even though they seem like they're increasing up, as we've seen, in the past, which you guys won't have seen, but there's 17% interest, 8% interest. When we're in the 3s and 4s, it's still great. So I think demand's just going to continue and our market's going to continue to grow.
Great. And Cathy's kind of highlighting, house prices based on the demand for housing, how many people want to buy, and then how many houses are available for sale, whether someone is leaving and selling the property or there's a new construction. We've had record low supply US wide, but certainly locally as well, and record high demand. So you do the math, the market has been wild. Harry, what are your thoughts? Market forecast, just a quick one.
Well, once again, with the increase of population coming to town, they'd absolutely prefer to own versus rent. Some cases right now, they just need to wait for a new home to be built because we just don't have the inventory. Once again, that's our local market. That's not going to change. If what Geoff said a while ago, in the event that interest rates do come up, the forecast of the mortgage market from national realtors, Lawrence Young, the national economist, he claims that we should be capped out this calendar year around 3 3/8 to 3.5. So that being said, it's okay to get a new home built today, but you typically can't have your interest rate locked till maybe the last 45 or 60 days to when you can close. So it's still lock in today, get today's price.
Thank you, Harry. And when he says 3 3/8, he's talking about, percentage interest, probably on a typical 30-year fixed mortgage. One of the commenters said there'll be a correction the next 1 to 3 years, but long-term trends, it will continue to rise. I think that's pretty reasonable. It's very hot right now. If we do have rates coming up, we may have a little bit of flattening, but certainly as Harry and Cathi are pointing out, the long-term trends are certainly all the arrows are pointing up for Colorado Springs, which it's a wonderful place to be, and a lot of people want to be here. So I am not sure if Megan wants to close out, but I really appreciate having the panelists here, taking the questions. And if you are interested in speaking with the panelists, we can provide you their contact information to reach out and ask.
And Ryan, when you see this right here, okay, so it's coming right out of, obviously, Tatiana, and the students let us see, because everything we're talking about is right here. This got published this past week.
Oh, okay, great.
The Economic Forum.
Right.
Yeah, and I'll just hop on and say thank you to everybody and Dr. Chacon for moderating. We really appreciate it. And any students that, if you're interested in talking to any of the panelists, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to share their contact information. Our dean also joined us today. So Dean Markell, thank you for being on the panel and participating. And thank you to all of you for spending your time with our students this afternoon. So have a wonderful day, everybody. And we really appreciate you and everything that you do for our students. A good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.